You'll have to excuse the lateness of the message. Life is lifing today, and my dog had a bit of an emergency. Um, but that kind of actually goes pretty perfect with the message of today's video, which is God's timing. The idea of God's timing has been weighing pretty heavily in my thoughts lately. Things that I thought should have happened by now, plans that I believe that He told me that He had for me, that I thought should have come to fruition by now, haven't. And I'm getting hit pretty hard from all sides. And I'm facing a lot of backlash. Like, I guess I thought that things would just get handed, like, hey, this is the plan, and so here you go. And it's not. It's, here's the plan, but you're going to have to work for it. And trust me, I'm working for it. Yesterday, someone sent me Ecclesiastes 3:1-6 in a text message. And then later that day, I saw a YouTube video. No mention of Ecclesiastes anywhere in the title, anywhere in the description, and yet they mentioned Ecclesiastes 3:11. And then yet another video on YouTube, again, no mention of Ecclesiastes anywhere in the video, and yet they also mentioned Ecclesiastes 3:11. So let's read Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1-15. And it says, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What does the worker gain from his toil? I have seen the burden God has laid on men. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the hearts of men, yet they cannot fathom what God has done from beginning to end. I know that there is nothing better for men than to be happy and do good while they live, that everyone may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all his toil. This is the gift of God. I know that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it and nothing taken from it. God does it so that men will revere him. Whatever is has already been, and what will be has been before, and God will call the past to account." When I read this passage, what this says to me during this specific time in my life is that a lot of times things need to happen in order. First you're born, then you die. First you plant the crops, and then you can harvest them. But there are also things that can happen simultaneously, and we often forget this. It's kind of like multitasking. Just because you're called to do one thing, and it's that season to do that one thing, doesn't mean that there's something that can't be happening in the background. What really comes to mind is the passage that says, "A time to mourn and a time to dance." It's okay to mourn, to grieve something in the past, but still be joyful about your present, your current situation, and yet still be hopeful for your future. All of those can exist at the same time. You don't have to first do all of your grieving and then be joyful all at once and then be hopeful for what's to come. All three can exist. In fact, it kind of makes sense that we do things a little bit in the past, a little bit in the present, and a little bit in the future because we think of time that way, past, present, and future. I was reading a Bible study from the Bible that my grandmother had, and it talks about this idea from Ecclesiastes 3, verse 11, where it says, "He has also set eternity in the hearts of men, yet they cannot fathom what God has done from beginning to end." Because what the little Bible study, the little daily devotional had said was that we as humans, we think of things as a finite time, maybe even in terms of a clock or dates on a calendar or past, present, future, or years, whatever. But this concept of time is very finite, right? But God is eternal. He always has been, he always will be. And it's like he always has been, he always is, and he always will be. And everything about God, it says in the devotional, is eternal. His love is eternal, right? The very nature of God is that he knows no time. He works in his own timing. And while there are things in our life that has the very concept of time about it, right? Like a baby is born in 9 months, right? We are held to time. God is not. And so if you think that you are behind compared to other people, then I would invite you to stop comparing yourself to other people because God made us uniquely us. Comparison, it says in the Bible, is not wise, and that's in 2 Corinthians. It also makes you prideful. Throughout the Bible, comparison only leads to bad things. And so the Bible calls us not to measure us against ourselves. God knows his plan for us. And we just need to be faithful that everything has a time. Everything has a season. There's a purpose for every person. And I struggle with this, of being patient for God to reveal his timing. And we all want the quick answers, especially in today's age. We all want fast answers. But maybe God calls you to be better than that. Maybe you are worth more than just a fast answer. maybe you are worth the time, the investment. One of the things that popped into my head when I was reading these verses today was it's funny how a lot of things can coexist that seem like opposites. It says in the Bible, there is a time to tear and a time to mend. And our muscles, when we're trying to build muscle, the muscle has to break down, it has to tear before it can mend and build up. It says there's a time to keep and a time to throw away. And when we are cleaning out our houses, like our spring cleaning, right? We're often doing both at the same time. We're thinking about what we need to keep and what we need to throw away or what we need to donate or what we need to sell, but what no longer has a purpose for us anymore and may have a purpose for someone else. And I was thinking earlier, it's funny how things that we think don't have anything to do with each other often really do have something to do with each other. Maybe it represents growing up and maturing. Maybe it represents healing, that you don't need trinkets or of a past relationship because you've healed from that relationship and you can move on from it and you don't need those things to cling to. And so maybe that would be an example of something that there was a time to keep it and now there's a time to give that away or to throw it away or to donate it. It says there's a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. And scattering stones and gathering them, to me, biblically would represent like setting down roots. Like you would gather stones for boundaries of land. And so there's a time to wander around. There's a time to like not really call a place home, but then there is a time to definitely call a place home and to become more permanent. And that to me also represents maturing and growing up. And so maybe you find yourself thinking about becoming more stable and what that means for you in your life. And maybe you would need to ask God. And so I was thinking about this concept of how funny it is that we use words, like how we use these words. And a song came to me today. It's not a Christian song, but it is a song that kind of illustrates what I'm talking about. And it's called Funny the Way It Is by the Dave Matthews Band. And, or it may just be Dave Matthews, I'm not sure. But he talks about how beautiful of a day it is. And I think he talks about how you may be wanting to go into the park and you hear the children laugh and play in the park. And then you hear sirens from a fire truck and somebody's house is burning down and someone is losing everything. So you're enjoying being out at the park on a beautiful day and you have everything and nothing's going wrong for you. Meanwhile, someone else is losing everything they own in a house fire. It talks about how a soldier loses his life the same day that his own baby is being born. And it talks about how you can hear children laugh while they're playing a game of war. Or how you hear the war song, Why Can't We Be Friends, in somebody's car radio. Meanwhile, they're screaming and crying in an apartment upstairs. And how we just seem to have these opposites. How a child will walk 10 miles to school to get an education, but somebody else is dropping out. And I don't know if Dave Matthews meant it this way, but I heard him say in an interview one time that what a song means to an artist doesn't really matter once they release the song. Because once they release the song, it doesn't become theirs anymore. It becomes whatever it means to you. And so the bridge to the song goes something to the effect of, standing on a bridge, watching the water pass underneath. It must have been much harder when there was no bridge, just water. And to me, the first thing I thought of, because I thought of this song while I was reading the scripture and kind of thinking about what I wanted to say for this video, I thought of Jesus as being the bridge between us and God. How in the Old Testament times, there were a lot more rituals and a lot more rules, and how things were a lot stricter, and you had to do things just so. And you needed priests and other spiritual leaders to help you practice your religion. And how much harder that must have been to practice the religion. But then Jesus came and he sacrificed his life. He was the ultimate sacrificial lamb for us so that we could have eternal salvation and we could communicate directly to God. And we didn't have all of those rituals that we had, that the Old Testament had to follow, that we could just go directly to God ourselves and we didn't need anyone else to intercede on our behalf. And what a blessing that is. And so in that song, standing on the bridge, watching the water pass underneath, like things are so much easier because Jesus followed God's plan. And he didn't it was hard for him to do, I'm sure, and painful, but how much easier he made it for all of us. And as hard as you think you may have it, waiting for your time, waiting for God's timing and waiting for his plan to play out in your life, think of how much harder it would be if there was no bridge, if there was just water and you had to figure it out for yourself or you had to do it in accordance to the old laws. All right, well, I have lost light and thankfully a security light has been provided. I know I kind of went all around the world in the video today. I hope that you could follow the message. Just know that God has a plan for you and it's in his perfect timing. Please try to understand that. And as always, pray, take this message back to God for confirmation to make sure that it is for you. And as always, may the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. I love y'all. Have a great night.